Okay, so good evening, everyone, and welcome to Bristol Tutorial College's webinar on helping parents prepare for success, both post A-Level and post GCSE. As parents ourselves, Chrissy, Lucy, and I, like you, simply want our children to have the best opportunities and options available to them throughout their educational journey. And as former teachers and heads in schools, we know that the next couple of months is one of the most angst-ridden periods of time ever. We all hope that our children will do well in these exams, but we also massively fear what will happen if it doesn't quite go according to plan. It almost feels bizarrely worse for us as parents. From my vast experience as both a parent and as a head, I can tell you that whatever happens, your children are going to be absolutely fine in life because they have you supporting them, and that's such a positive in their lives at the moment. And so thank you for attending tonight. I truly mean that. Chrissy, Lucy, and I have been through it ourselves as parents. In fact, Lucy is going through the angst of waiting for A-level results for her daughter right now as we speak. And so everything we say tonight comes from the heart and with vast experience behind us. In many respects, this is exactly why we set up Bristol Tutorial College. I'm John Milne, and I'm the co-owner and co-founder of Bristol Tutorial College, and I have over 3 decades of working in schools and supporting students and their families, and I'm also delighted to be joined tonight by Chrissy Namenko, the principal of BTC, or Bristol Tutorial College, and also Lucy Wayman, a co-founder and a teacher at BTC. So welcome to you both.
Thanks, John. I'm John has said, Chrissy Namenko. I've been teaching for about 10 years now. I've worked with John and Lucy since 2019. I had a very disruptive GCSE results day myself personally. So I really believe it's important to get the help and the right type of support to help you get to the next stage, whatever that may be. Thanks, John.
Thank you. And, I'm Lucy Wayman and I'm a co-founder of Bristol Tutorial College. I've been a teacher for, well, probably too many years to count, really. And over the past 5 years or more, I found myself increasingly drawn to working with students who haven't experienced a straight line in education, whether they've had a learning difficulty, a neurodiversity, mental health issues, or physical health concerns. And I found that a lot of students and their parents have struggled in a system that's designed for the majority of people, and their children don't exactly fit that mold and find school more difficult than it should be. And I speak from personal experience of having a high functioning, academically able, but very neurodiverse child who just didn't thrive in mainstream schooling. And I really strongly believe that every child deserves the chance to thrive and reach their potential. So at Bristol Tutorial College, we have consciously established a really supportive environment for every single student.
Thanks, Chrissy. Thanks, Lucy. So the format this evening is pretty straightforward in that there's an opportunity for you to ask any questions that you may want to in the Q&A channel. So please enter anything that you are curious about into that channel. It's all confidential and no names will be used. You'll also receive a copy of the webinar this week, so please don't worry about missing a crucial piece of information or an answer to a question. So to get the webinar underway, I wanted to ask a couple of questions just to get us going because we've had so many questions come through over the last few days. So Chrissy, just working backwards from examination results day in August for GCSEs and A-levels, and one of the questions that came in was related to how quickly can BTC support parents and or onboard a student post results, depending on whether it's GCSEs or A-levels?
Thanks, John. Well, the best advice would be to contact us following the webinar to book an appointment, whether that's in person or online. Obviously, we're going to be responding to calls and messages and emails on results day. But I think it's always better to have a discussion with you just to find out a little bit of background information, talk to you about subjects, about options, and what the process is. Results are typically released at 8 a.m. A-level results will be on Thursday, the 14th of August. These GCSEs are a week later. So if your child doesn't get A-level results that they need to progress on to their chosen university course, clearing isn't updated until 1 p.m. So I think it can be a really difficult time. So please get in touch. There'll be a whole team of us available on the day to provide you with the best advice and support that you need.
Thanks, Chrissy. And so, Chrissy, in terms of liaising with the school once the students get their results, is there anything that parents should be talking to schools about and or checking the UCAS hub before contacting us, just so that they are aware of all of the support that the school can offer or all of the options that might be available? I'm thinking of sometimes, although the results have come out and you may not get the right results, it's worth checking the UCAS hub, because sometimes, even though the results or your expected grades might not be what you were hoping for, a university might still, on that basis, make an offer. So it's worth checking the UCAS hub before panicking or making any rash decisions.
Absolutely, John. And as I say, UCAS start updating their portal from 8 a.m. Be proactive. If your child has an offer and they've missed a grade boundary for their offer, most admissions teams are available and will be able to speak to you, and they may be able to offer you, still hold that offer open. The UCAS portal doesn't release places until 1 p.m. 1300 on results day. So it can be a really distressing time for children, your child, because they might see offers aren't being accepted. But again, I would say be proactive, contact the universities directly and see if they will still hold that offer open for them.
Thanks, Chrissy. And I think it's also worth mentioning as well that whilst it may feel that an appeal is worthwhile, even a priority appeal can still take anywhere between 5 to 10 business days, and a regular appeal can take up to 4 to 6 weeks. So don't rely on there being an appeal if you don't get, or your child doesn't get the right grades. It's always good to know in advance what your options are, and in parallel be talking to ourselves and or others about what you can do in the short term. So, Lucy, in terms of prior to results day on the 14th for A levels and the 21st for GCSEs, this is an interesting one. So, as a parent, should parents be talking to their children about a potential plan B? It's a bit of a minefield, because some parents may see that as a criticism already, that or a lack of support. But if a parent does want to talk to a child before GCSE or A-level results about what a plan B might be, what would your advice be?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, John. It's you can potentially have a very grumpy teenager on your hands if you get this one wrong. I would say at the moment, if you're concerned that your child may not achieve the grades that they need for the next stage of what they're doing, I certainly wouldn't do anything about it at the moment. Most of the children are needing quite a good period of time to decompress after their exams. I certainly haven't mentioned it to my daughter that anything to do with results at the moment. We're just chilling and catching up on sleep and just being, just existing. But yeah, if you pick your right moments with your child, it may actually alleviate a lot of their concerns. A, because you can start conversations with them, and B, because you're going to be providing them with an alternative. If you're worried about their exams, they probably are as well. And they're probably thinking, well, what happens if I fail? What happens if it doesn't go right? Then where am I? So if you raise these conversations in a very constructive way, not as, I don't think you're good enough to get your results, but more as a kind of, if things didn't go to plan, if those horrible examiners just didn't ask us the right questions and it didn't go, the way we wanted, have you thought about anything you might be able to do? And then you can start that conversation with them but keep it non-judgmental, keep it non-confrontational, and keep it very much a conversation as support rather than anything else.
Okay, great. Thanks, Chrissy. And anything, Chrissy, you'd recommend?
I think I agree with Lucy. Choose your moment. I think if your teenager's worrying, I think it's probably healthy to have that conversation with them. But equally, I have so many students that come out of A-level exams that think they've done terribly, and actually on results day they've done brilliantly. Equally, I have students that come out and say that went really well, and the results unfortunately aren't what they were hoping for. That was all I was going to add. I think, communication is and just talking
Yeah.
is brilliant.
Great. Okay. And so, Chrissy, you touched on it earlier. Is it possible for a parent to talk with us prior to results day, but not actually commit to being part of Bristol Tutorial College? I think that's always something parents are quite apprehensive about. But what would your advice be about being in touch, talking to us, preparing for all outcomes, but not feeling as if they're obligated to sign up to our services? I think that's really important.
Absolutely, John. Teaching, we've stopped teaching all of our students now. They've all done exams. So our diary at the moment is booking meetings with parents. Really, we want to get to know you. We really have a vast amount of experience. We can send lots of questionnaires to you. We've got lots of information about courses, different pathways. There's a whole range of qualifications that we teach, and it would just be really lovely to meet you. Absolutely no obligation session to meet us on Zoom if that's easier, or in person. Please come and meet us at Berkeley Square. We'd love to talk to you just to find a bit more about your child and about where you live, and we can talk about all sorts of things. I think often students don't initially come to that first meeting, but equally they do as well. So I think usually they're in school, and parents, I think, sometimes want to make sure that they've got something lined up. So
Thanks,
yeah.
Chrissy. Thanks, Chrissy. And just for everyone's information, I've put our blog page into the chat channel. You'll find on there lots of very useful blogs and articles about talking to your children, coaching, mentoring them, best approaches to take. So please check that out. Lots of really good free resources on there that I think you'll find useful, albeit post exams. There are always little nuggets in there that I think are very, very helpful. So, Chrissy, in terms of what we actually do for students, just to paint a picture for parents, could you just talk about maybe a case study of a student that has come to us in the past year and how we're working with them and how we're enabling them to flourish?
Yeah, so a student came to us following GCSE results day in pieces. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to carry on at school, progressing to sixth form. She missed out on a place at another sixth form because of not meeting entry requirements. So we had a series of meetings over the summer, which culminated in us offering a bespoke learning package and program, which allowed her to progress to sixth form with us. It's really important for her to be able to say to her peers that she was in sixth form. So she resat maths and English with us, past those. She started some A-level courses, and then actually after about 4 months of A-level courses, realised that she was doing the wrong course. And she wanted to do a business management qualification, and we've switched her to a level 3 extended diploma program, which is equivalent to a foundation course at university. And it's been a really good change. Often we meet with parents and students, and they have their hearts set on a subject. And often after 6 weeks of an A level, students can sometimes change their mind. Psychology is a really common one where students love the idea of it, but when they actually start working on the course, they realize the specification is a lot of data and statistics. and perhaps that isn't an area of strength for the students. So again, we have regular tutorial sessions. We assess and feedback as teachers all of the time. And we will have a conversation with you about doing that. So I don't think, we have straightforward case studies where students do A-levels, they don't change them. But I think it's really interesting as teachers, we will really recommend a change if we feel it might be more suitable.
Thanks, Chrissy. And Lucy, from your experience on a slightly different plane, can you just talk a little bit about maybe a student that you've had and how, again, we've enabled them to flourish in a slightly different setting?
Yes, of course. Thanks, John. So I'll just briefly tell you the story of a student, anonymized, of course, for confidentiality, who I taught for around 18 months. He was one of the many who had struggled during COVID and became increasingly anxious about returning to school once all the lockdowns were lifted. And this badly affected both his school attendance and his mental health until he was in a situation where he couldn't leave the house at all due to really crippling anxiety and all sorts of problems. So I started teaching him in a hybrid of online learning and going to his house. And then as his confidence began to grow, we gradually transitioned to teaching him from our Berkeley Square site. He came into the college 3 days a week in the end, and we arranged his timetable so that he could fit his therapy sessions around when he attended. And if he needed to have some time online and couldn't cope with coming out, then we just switched to online for those times. And we started his sessions later in the day because he had particular routines he needed to follow in the mornings and wasn't able to be up and about at a normal school time. Um, and I'm just delighted to say that he is another one who's just completed his A-levels with us, and he's got an offer to do film studies at university this autumn. He's really looking forward to getting stuck into it and meeting other people and being part of a regular student community. And I just couldn't be happier for him and for his parents as well.
Thanks, Lucy. Thanks, Chrissy. So, Chrissy, we've talked about the way in which we can be very bespoke and very tailored, and we can also be very responsive to an individual's needs and to a family's needs. Just thinking about all the extra support that goes in to making sure that the student is confident and happy and is flourishing. Can you just talk a little bit about a typical support system for a student at BTC in terms of the guidance and the mentoring and the tutoring and the coaching that they receive on a daily basis?
Yeah, so thanks, John. I really think it's important to have that direct line of communication with the student. If a student doesn't turn up, we contact you straight away. We have really robust safeguarding practices. I'm the designated safeguarding lead, and I meet with students regularly. We also run a series of structured student support sessions and self-study sessions. So each student is assigned a tutor, which they meet with throughout their course of studies, usually weekly. If there are any concerns about the student or student's progress that we need to contact you about, we will do pretty much straight away. We have had lots of circumstances that we have had to report to families, but usually these are things that get resolved where a student might need some additional support. But usually the type of students we work with are already getting that support, and you're here because you're supporting. So what I would say is we have a whole enrichment program. I think once students, sometimes a little bit shy when they first arrive, but after a couple of weeks and meeting lots of other students that have got very different stories, different backgrounds, everyone gets on, and I think we work collaboratively as well. Students study together. Often we might have the odd occasion where a student's in a class on their own, but we have a student that's joining online. And because of the hybrid offering that Lucy mentioned, we can come and teach at home if that's what a student needs. We'd obviously prefer them to be in Berkeley Square, but we always recognise that sometimes it can be a mixture of both to start with. We have some students that come in full-time pretty much from day one, and they remain full-time all the way through their studies with us.
Thanks, Chrissy. And Lucy, can we just jump into if a student that comes to us has not perhaps achieved the grades that they were hoping, and typically they've had access arrangements in their previous school, how does that translate into what we can deliver and what we can support at BTC?
Yes, of course. Well, I mean, a child who's had access arrangements in place is entitled to those access arrangements. And that's something that we will ensure continues. There is a series of paperwork that follows with the student from their previous school, or can be used, alongside other settings as well. I'm qualified to assess for these access arrangements. So quite often what happens is we have a student who arrives with us, and it's fairly clear fairly early on that they have the need for different access to enable the playing field on getting the right results for that child. And they need the access arrangements, and that might not be the standard ones that are often offered in schools. So in schools, you will often, be given extra time, or you might have a reader, you might have supervised rest breaks. But actually, there's a whole host of other options that are available if your child meets the required level of need for them, like having a scribe or having a computer pen, or all sorts of different things. And it's our place within the college to make sure that every child who comes to us is given every bit of access to make sure that they are able to get the best grades that they can, within their abilities. And so we take it really seriously and make sure that everything is provided, that the student's entitled to.
And thanks, Lucy. And in terms of the access arrangements and examinations, Chrissy, can you just talk a little bit about, are the students in the future able to take the exams with us, or would they need to find a separate examination centre?
Thanks, John. So we're currently in the process of becoming an examination centre. So all of our students joining us from September will be able to sit their resit examinations with us and sit their formal exams next summer. It's interesting talking about these examination requirements, Lucy, because when students join us, Lucy's actually picked up on quite a few students that joined us that didn't have access arrangements in place that needed them. So I think the wraparound care that we talk about is really instrumental. If your child joins us in September and they do want to do a resit, we'll perhaps talk about this a bit later on, John, but resits are available for GCSEs in November. But resits, most of our students sit resits the following summer. So we're looking at resits possibly at a couple of times a year. But the access arrangements and being able to provide those actually on site, we've actually got a second site in Redland as well, and we can accommodate additional access arrangement requests.
Thanks, Chrissy. We've had a question coming in, and just a reminder to the parents on the webinar, if you do have any questions, just pop them in the Q&A channel and we'll answer them as we go along. But Chrissy, there's a parent that has said that their child is allowed to enter into the sixth form to do A levels, even if they don't pass certain GCSEs. But they themselves, the school, won't offer resits for the GCSE. So is it entirely possible for a student to be doing GCSE resits with us, whilst at the same time doing A levels with their current school or with their sixth form school? Can we do that in parallel?
So that's a great question. Thank you. We're actually talking to two schools in Bristol at the moment. One has asked us to do their resits or teach them. So in that circumstance, depending on the student and the subjects that need resitting, we can offer a maths and English resit for groups of students or individual students. So yes, the answer is yes. I think on results day, it's about having that conversation with the head of sixth form or the head of academic at your child's school to see if that's possible. It certainly is with two schools that we're meeting with at the moment. They are really happy to send their learners to us because of our reputation. So those students will be released a couple of times a week to come down to Berkeley Square and have teaching on site, and then sit those resit examinations with us next summer. So it is entirely possible. Again, it's part of our bespoke offering. We're really keen to work with other schools, and we're beginning to do so more and more. There might be a circumstance where the school isn't happy for that to happen. And again, it's perhaps another conversation that I can have with the parents involved to discuss best steps forward. I think often when we do speak to schools, they're more than happy for us to take it over, because it obviously releases a timetable commitment for school, and we can work much more effectively with resources.
Great. Thanks, Chrissy. And Lucy, just on that basis, have you worked with students who perhaps want to do a particular A level, don't want to leave their current school, but really need that additional A level for entry into a particular course or a particular university? Is that something that we've done in the past?
Yes, we've done it, to my knowledge, on at least two occasions where a student's been studying their three A levels at their school for their standard things, but they've wanted very desperately to go to university to study a subject, and they need an A level that's not offered at their school. So the times that's happened has been with further maths and with Greek. So these students have been attending normal schools, but they've had a really passionate desire to go and study at university. And so we've been able to make sure that they are able to do those. And we talk to the schools that they're working with so that everybody knows what everybody's up to. But they're just doing this alongside as an extra A level, because that's right for some children.
And equally, Lucy, can you talk about an example of a student where they've passed their A levels, but they haven't quite got the grades for the course that they want to do at university? How have we supported those particular students, and what sorts of timeframes have we worked with them?
Yeah, absolutely. And as Chrissy said, depending on the exams and the exam boards that you're needing to do, resits don't need to take a whole year, or you can take a whole year over them. So we've worked with students who have not quite got what they need, but they only need to bump up a little bit. So they've maybe taken their year off after school, or they've just taken a not necessarily a gap year, but a breather year, and they've topped up their grades during that time. And alongside, they've been maybe working or doing another course or just getting themselves back together. And I think the message that comes through all of this is that we try and work with individual families and individual students. And if a student has a burning desire to be able to go and do something, then it's in everybody's best interest to try and match that student with a pathway that's going to get them to where they need to be, in an easiest way that's the least hassle for everybody, and it's going to have the best outcomes.
Thanks, Lucy. So we've had a question come in about what would we say are BTC's unique selling points. I suppose from my perspective, one of the main reasons for setting up Bristol Tutorial College is exactly as we've just described, that in the city of Bristol, there aren't any other options or very few options for children who perhaps just don't fit into a box, or perhaps have had a health issue, or there's something going on in their lives that has just knocked them slightly sideways. So I think that's pretty unique in the sense that we're very tailored, we're very bespoke. And when it comes to the finances around that, there's a question related to that, and that is, do we offer bursaries? And what I would say to parents who are in attendance and or who are watching this is that we can be quite flexible with our fees in terms of having a genuine conversation with parents. We recognise that we are a private provider and that our fees for individuals can be quite expensive. But if that is going to be an issue, please do come talk to me, and we can look at everyone on a case-by-case basis. But I think just returning to what are our USPs, apart from being bespoke and quite tailored, I think the students that come to us really love the fact that because we're based in the centre of Bristol, so we're in Berkeley Square, which is on the triangle at the top of Park Street. It's very accessible by bus, great parking. You can easily walk to us from Clifton Down train station as well. But I think the students really love the fact that it's in the university sector, it's in the university district in Bristol. So it feels quite grown up. They feel very independent. And I think at that stage, particularly as a post A-level student, that's really important to them in terms of their self-esteem and just their self-worth. And actually, they're very proud of coming to the school off the back of that. In terms of the teaching quality as well, we're very lucky in the city of Bristol in that we can draw on some of the best teaching that's available, not only because of the proximity to the independent and state schools here in Bristol, but also the university. But post-COVID, there are more and more very, very high quality teachers who are opting to work independently and or on a consultancy basis. So again, the teachers that we have are all thoroughly checked, DBS checked, and they're of a very, very high standard. And I haven't worked in a school where I think the teaching is as good because we can be very selective in terms of who we choose. And I think, as Chrissy mentioned as well, one of the other big selling points is that we're incredibly flexible, whether a student needs to come in later on in the day, whether they have to have an irregular pattern, whether some days they need an online provision, whether we might need to take a pause because of some other disruption, we can accommodate that by and large. So I think there are lots of very strong USPs about Bristol Tutorial College that you'd really struggle to get in many other schools, certainly in the southwest of England, that's for sure. So, just looking at some of the other questions that have come in, Chrissy, just related to that and it being a slightly more grown-up environment for those students that are doing A-level resits in particular. A question's come in, how do I know that my child will be well looked after all of the time and not just for those moments when they're being taught by our teachers and our staff at BTC?
That's a great question. I think we get to know the students really well. I am a parent, a mum as well. My daughter's 23 now, but going through lots of difficulties at A-level. I think, I ended up speaking to the teachers quite a lot. I think that was really difficult. School was a little bit resistant about that. We're not like that at all. Often, teachers, we speak to each other. We have a team of subject specialist teachers. We know when a child isn't feeling well, we might have to send them home. I think, I have to mention mental health. We have students that have physical health problems. We have students that have severe mental health problems and mild mental health problems. So well-being is something that is really difficult because if we're getting a student coming to us that needs to resit that's previously failed, I think that's really hard for the student to deal with. But we build up self-esteem. We do a lot of one-to-one coaching and mentoring, and we really try and bring out the potential in a child. It's often students perceive themselves to be quite different to how they are and how they present. We have such a wide range of experienced subject teachers that teach different styles in different ways, and we identify the type of learner that your child is. And if a relationship isn't working very well, it might be a reason that a particular student might not get on with a particular teaching style, then we'll shuffle that around. But equally, that's not the only reason why we wouldn't do that. We do sometimes have learners that don't like a particular teacher, But we always think of it's like Nanny McPhee. They need that teacher to get the results that they need. So it's a delicate balance. So when they're with us on site, we've got a pastoral support team that are really caring. We've even got a college dog that is a non-allergic dog that's absolutely lovely. And students that are really scared of dogs bond with Herbie. So I suppose, it's the wraparound care. And as a parent, I would be saying, well, what does that look like? That is a timetable that isn't going to overload your children. We recognise that if they're past the age of 18 and they're coming to us for resits, they might be doing driving lessons, they might have a part-time job. So we treat them like young adults, but they're always students with us. And I think we care about them professionally. We want them to be successful.
Thanks, Chrissy. And of course, on top of all of that, in terms of well-being and safeguarding, Chrissy, you're a designated safeguarding lead and qualified as such. And both Lucy and I are safeguarding governors at other schools as well. So in terms of following best practice and being compliant, we're absolutely spot on there. Um, we're drawing to a close and we've got maybe one or two other questions. Lucy, is there anything that you want to just say in summary, just with the parents that are listening on tenterhooks, wanting some pearls of wisdom over the next couple of months and looking ahead, fearing the worst, but hoping for the best? What would your advice to them be?
Well, I don't know that I've got any pearls of wisdom per se to hand out, but I think it's so easy as a parent to get bogged down and sort of not be able to see the wood for the trees and think that, if they don't get the grades they need, then everything falls apart. Their lives are destroyed and they'll never have a successful this, that, and the other, whatever it might be. But actually, I think if there's one message I can put over to parents today is that there is always another route. There's always a solution, and there is always a way through things that is going to have a very positive outcome. There is not just one way to go from A to B. There are lots and lots of different ways that you can get to have a successful, fulfilling, productive life, even if you don't get the grades that you really want. So come and have a conversation and talk to us about what your options might be, because there's nothing worse than sitting awake at 3 o'clock in the morning panicking about it. And we've all done it, but you don't need to, promise.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Lucy. And I think it's worth pointing out to parents as well, just on that point about there's always a pathway. We get fixated on A levels as the only route to success, but actually, an A level is effectively just what's called a level three qualification. And we offer a whole range of other level three qualifications and other routes into either other providers or into university, but via a more appropriate route for the individual student. So again, parents don't need to worry about, well, if they've messed up on their A levels, that's the end of the world. It absolutely isn't. And increasingly, more and more universities and more providers are taking different kinds of qualifications for success, which is something that we can advise on, whether that's going to another provider, whether that's looking at apprenticeships, whether that's maybe taking a BTEC, whether that's maybe taking a foundation course. There are lots of different ways in which you can gain success for your children and they can flourish in life. And again, the other thing to remember is this is not time dependent. There are more and more students taking a year out or perhaps changing tack and doing something slightly different. That's becoming more and more the norm. So again, if your child just misses out on certain grades, doesn't get onto a particular course, it really, really is not the end of the world. But what we can guarantee you is that we will get them the grades that's appropriate to them. We will get them into the course that is appropriate to them. And we've got a very strong track record, either online or in person, of achieving that as well. Chrissy, just final words from you before I wrap up. Anything that you'd like to um, give to the parents?
Yes, thank you, John. I think just to echo Lucy and John, worst scenario, there's always a solution. I think we're increasingly talking to families now about the possibilities that might happen. But equally, we're becoming a plan A. More and more families want to send their children to study with us because we do offer a slightly different student focused perspective. We don't have 200 students doing A levels with us. So we're small but perfectly formed, but big enough so that we can offer a wide range of subjects. We offer work experience. I'm PSHE lead as well. So we do a whole series of lessons about well-being. It could be anything from, more, finances, budgeting, tax, part-time jobs. And I think, what I'm seeing, certainly with the families I'm meeting, is that students are not necessarily taking gap years. They're going to retake an A level because they really want to do a course that they haven't got the results for. So it's that resilience, isn't it? It's what we're saying is actually at some point, something is going to go wrong. You're not going to get you're going to fail an exam. It might be a driving test that you might not get, but a student's going to have a fail at some point in their career, whether that's in professional qualifications, if they go to accountancy school or law school. So actually, when it happens, and it will happen, we normalize it, but we come up with a strategy and a solution that works. It's tried and tested.
Thanks, Chrissy. Thanks, Lucy. So, just to wrap up, I just wanted to say to everyone that by choosing to be on this webinar tonight, you're already demonstrating that your child has the right support system in place to enable them to be successful. So they'll be absolutely fine. We are available after this webinar tonight, either via WhatsApp or email. We'd be delighted to have an online meeting or a face-to-face meeting to help understand the needs better for your child and to get to know your personal circumstances. And of course, it's completely free and there are no obligations whatsoever. Bizarrely and counterintuitively, we hope that we don't ever see you again because that will mean that your child has achieved the grades that they need and they're progressing and they're flourishing. But we know, however, that this is an incredibly stressful and angst-ridden period of time for you. And so we'd be delighted to support you in the interim until results do come through. And we're here for you should you have difficulties in August and or later on in your child's academic journey. My final message to you all is that there is always a solution and your children will be absolutely fine. You're making a positive choice by being here tonight to understand how you can support them. And that's incredible support, even though you might not realize that. So thank you very much for being in attendance. As Chrissy said, we're small and perfectly formed. We are increasingly becoming a plan A for parents, not just a plan B or a fail-safe, because we're all recognizing that our children don't all learn in a linear fashion and life isn't a straight line. So we're here, we can support you. We will cherish your children and value them. We will get them to where they need to get to. But we wish you all the very best over the next couple of months. And I'm sure that your children will be successful wherever they end up, whatever they end up doing. So thank you very much, everyone. It's been an absolute pleasure. We'll be sending you a copy of the webinar this week. And if you do have any questions, please do get in touch. Please do share the video with any of your friends and or colleagues, and we'd be delighted to talk to them as well. Lucy, Chrissy, thank you very much. And
Thank you.
have a good evening, everyone.
Thanks, John. Bye-bye.